Hello, my name is Jeannie Zhang, and this is my long oral presentation for Language in Culture and Society class. Due to a lot of technical difficulties, please understand me walking back and forth and figure something out. Cool. All right. So my presentation is called What Makes a Formal Speech in Text Messaging? In my previous research, I focused on the elements which makes a formal language informal and informal language formal. And in terms of figuring that out, I focused on some elements such as abbreviation, slang words, made up words, phonetically but misspelled words, and so forth in the process. However, I wanted to go more deeper on this matter, so I perform another set of research for it. In my previous research, I had three participants of different ethnic cultural backgrounds, of ages, and of fields of study. So for my new research, my main concept is that one speech will change due to the change of that person's audience. So for this research, I had to go through some steps, and the first was to make up a text message sent to an acquaintance in a certain scenario. The scenario is that the sender, I, is late for a meeting we set up together, and I might be late or not be able to show up at all. So I have to send a message to a recipient about my situation. And I asked three of my interviewees to have different audience members. So those three audience members were a significant other, your professor, and your mother. And I'll go more in detail with the significance of those audience members in the future. And I instructed interviewees to alter my original text to an acquaintance accordingly to their audience member. And I recorded the changes. These are some examples I found on internet, so they don't have much correlation with my own findings. However, I thought it will be helpful for myself and the audience, for people who watch the presentation to understand the premise of what I'm trying to do. So in these examples, you can see there are two sets of audience in same situation and the differences they make in terms of responses. For example, if you look at the first example on the left, on the right, it's the same question of how are you doing for a best friend and a crush. When a person responds to a best friend, they would go very in detail about what happened to them, how their boss ruined their day, and how that person feels very intimately in details, emotions, and significant differences it made that day. However, if that person is responding to a crush, a person who that person has a crush on, that person will remain very standard, cliche response, yet polite and not very intruding in terms of boundary. So the first compartment I focused on is the element of intimacy. I gave one of my participants an audience member who has a great level of intimacy, such as a significant other. So my first participant, number one, she is female, 20 years old. She is economics major and she's white. And my original text to an acquaintance is this. I am very sorry. I think I will be late for 20 minutes. The traffic is terrible. Please remind me when you have to leave. In this text message, I tried to stay very neutral, not too apologetic, yet still polite, since this acquaintance is not a very close friend, neither a stranger. And my participant 1 altered the text message as following. Sorry baby, I'll be late. Cry face, I overslept again. I'll be there ASAP though. Don't worry, don't wait and just order the usual please. Kissy face, I think that's what it's supposed to be. So she made a lot of alterations, such as she would refrain from using complete sentences. She will overlook some grammatical rules. She will use emojis and abbreviated words such as though. And she will indicate a certain level of their intimacy by saying that she overslept again. A person who she had never met before will not understand her usual habits, so she will not understand that that person oversleeps a lot. And order the usual also indicates the level of their intimacy. So I concluded that difference in level of intimacy make different speech pattern. So the first one will be complimentary versus honest feedback. If being honest doesn't jeopardize the relationship with a person you are having a conversation with, in other words, if you're close to the person, it won't be as complimentary as much as you're talking to a stranger. Standard versus flexible. If you're only meeting a person who you are only very acquainted to, you'll try not to deviate so much from standard social rules and expectation. Cautious and comfortable. This go along with being polite as in general. If you don't know the person, be very cautious in terms of choosing topics or saying certain words. Inside jokes. Only close friends who have spent much length of time together will understand inside jokes, which coming from their shared experience. The second part of this presentation is focused on authority. How would people's speech pattern change according to who they're talking to, a person in an authority or peers? So my participant number 2, she's female, 19 years old, she's peace study major, typo, I'm sorry, and she's Chinese international student. So she altered my original text to acquaintance accordingly. Her audience member was one of her professor, and the professor indicated in text message is fake. So just FYI. Altered text message goes following. Professor Harris, I am terribly sorry for my tardiness. I hate to waste your time like this. I think it will take another 20 minutes until I arrive due to traffic. Please let me know if you prefer setting up for another meeting. So when you're texting a person of authority or higher power than you, such as your boss, professor, or elderly person, I found a common behavior of people avoiding using abbreviated words, made-up words, slangs, avoiding using emojis and GIFs, spelling correctly, using proper grammar and proper punctuation. The second and last part is a culture, such as ethnic, cultural, regional differences that people bring in their conversation. My third and last participant, he's a guy, he's 18 years old, international business major, and he's Asian. So I gave a very interesting twist into this part of my presentation because I personally assume that the person who you share your cultural, regional, ethnic similarity with is your parents, especially your mother. So I made his audience member his mother, and he changed his text accordingly. Hey Ma, I can't show up today. Find other way to entertain yourself. Haha, sorry, love you. So pretty much, I could not find much cultural significant difference in his little alteration of the text message. However, I asked him a question of, do you think people text their parents differently according to their ethnic cultural backgrounds? And his honest answer was no, that people might not text differently according to their cultural ethnic differences to their parents. However, the shared similarity might be the extreme informality, intended jokes and playfulness, underlined understanding and forgiveness, emotionally more ease to cancel a meeting. So how does my presentation ties into course material? I focused on Malinowski's context first. So he asserts that context is the milestone to understand the meaning of those words from outer person perspective. And in this particular case of my presentation, I must go not against but not with Malinowski, because I was able to recognize keywords and styles of one's speech and figure out the social role of a recipient. It was inferable. In conclusion, my research not necessarily defeats but do not go in line with Malinowski's notion of context, I believe. Frames. The frame is a great factor to my presentation. So, frames specify characteristic features, attributes, and functions of a linguistic expression. Definitely it did, especially in terms of the participant differences in my presentation. So different types of recipients trigger speakers to perform differently. Certain types of people indicate certain types of social contacts. Identities set certain expectation and social responsibilities. So if you're talking to a professor, it definitely will be different from how you talk to your mother or your best friend or your significant other. Time speaking is definitely the concept that showed up in my previous research because it goes very perfectly with the way I'm trying to make this presentation of. So form, setting were very similar in terms of those three situations. However, that there was participant differences. The intent and effort was similar. Key and mediums were all text messages. The genre I will not mention of. The norms of interaction was definitely different because the frame of those conversations were different. Concluding my presentation, I came to realize that text messaging is closer to speech than a written word. Certain study claims that verbal pauses such as or and o in text and employ made-up words. We employ made-up words and phonetic spellings in a playful way, just like we do during an informal chat. In nature, texts resemble speech much more than written words. So I believe that in nature, text message is meant to be informal. These are some summary of what I found that kind of determines an informal and a formal speech in text message. So these are some hallmarks. Initialism, JK for just kidding, and fourth, then just fourth. Shortened words, cuz for because, IMA for I'm going to, non-standard spelling and grammar, emoticon, emojis, and GIFs, and slang words and cuss words. These are some citations I found some more data from, and thank you very much.